All right. Well, good morning. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, especially those of you, our partners in the land protection and preservation agencies. Want to apologize. We realized we were hoping to bring this to you about 2 months ago, but due to some constraints that occurred, we had to delay. But now are back and hopefully can continue to move forward. And we'll talk a little bit today about the agricultural land easement part of ACEP specifically, what the sign up looks like for this year, go a little bit through the sign up process, also talk about some other things specific to ALE as well. And yeah, again, just wanted, for those of you who may not be aware, the former coordinator, Brian Thomas, who I know you all are familiar with and have dealt with for a long time, did take early retirement back in April. So he left in April, and Angie and I have been kind of tag teaming here on the easement side of things to keep the ball rolling as best we can, as well as our other duties that didn't get taken from us and we still continue to do as well. So you may have seen, or we may have worked with some of you folks, and we try our best to both work directly, and that's why we usually copy each other on emails. But again, we're tag teaming here to try and keep things moving as best we can in the interim. And as the slide mentions there at the bottom, Brian left in April, and currently right now we have no idea if or when a new coordinator may actually be hired to fill Brian's position. So for now, you get the both of us for an indeterminate amount of time. So hopefully you have good service as best we can provide. So the agenda, again, just a reminder, please keep yourself on mute during the presentation. The chat is available if you have questions and want to throw questions in the chat, feel free. We'll be monitoring that and address questions as they come up or at the end. And then also we'll give you the option at the end of the presentation that if you want to raise your hand and come off mute and ask a question, you can ask a verbal question as well at the end of the presentation. So with that, we'll jump right in to some timelines here. So again, this is tentative. We still haven't finalized our sign up announcement yet, but it's close. And as of right now, we're tentatively looking at an application submittal deadline for FY26 AL applications to be due to NRCS here in the state office by January 15th. Once we know for sure the exact date and if this date is going to hold, we will send an email out with the official announcement to all the folks here on the call as well. So you'll get official word, but 15th right now is the target date that we're looking at. So entities, if you have applications in mind, probably want to get working on those here after we get through the presentation today or get started. We're going to do what's called an application completeness review here at the state office. So once those come in, we're going to do a thorough review to make sure that packet you're submitting with the checklist that you're completing has all the required documents, they're filled out correctly, and we've got the information we need to continue moving that application forward. We're going to give you some leeway, and that, you know, once we find problems or issues, we're going to turn it right back around and let you know. And then it's expected that anything that needs to be fixed, corrected, or updated, you will have back to us here by the 13th of February. That's kind of the final date that we got to close out applications. And if they're not complete, then they won't be eligible for consideration this fiscal year. One of the things big with ALE this year that we want and need to have is the NRCS field staff will be doing the environmental due diligence, site inspections, and interviews with the landowners. So early coordination with your field offices in your county, your DCs, to let them know what parcels you're looking at applying so they can try to schedule those. The big unfortunate incident now is due to that 2-month delay that we had. They can't do these site inspections with snow on the ground. The ground has to be free of snow so they can see what is out on the surface. So unfortunately, we're kicking this requirement down into April, hoping that there will be a window of opportunity between now and then, that the ground will be free and they can get out and do those inspections for you and get those forms completed and turned around and back to us here in the state office. April 24th is when we're looking at completing the rankings and making selections for funding, and then the tentative pre-approvals of funding for the ALE applications. And then June 26th is going to be our target deadline to have all the parcel contracts awarded and returned, signed, and obligated. So one thing I don't have on here, and I'll mention, is we did just recently get our FY26 ALE allocation of funds, and this year we've got approximately $4 million that we'll be awarding for ALE. So I think it's a larger amount than what we've had in previous years. So that's a good thing, because I know there's a fair amount of interest out there. So 4 million is what we're looking at for the allocation to be awarded this year. Just a couple of high points to touch on here. Unfortunately, I know some of these timelines might be a little concerning to you or surprising, and it's just unfortunate due to the lost time we had from the shutdown. We can't get that back, so it's affecting some of our timelines here internally as well. We want to make sure one of our priorities this year is we've got complete applications when you're sending them in. That's why we're doing the completeness reviews on applications and giving some leeway to get those corrections back in a timely manner if they're not when you get them submitted. And again, coordinate with your field offices as soon as possible to get on their schedules for any due diligence site reviews that need to get done by those folks. You know, don't wait till the last minute to let them know. If you can get a hold of them and get it on their calendar, they can get out and get those done as soon as the weather permits. And then last item there is when we make selections, we'll be sending out those approval notifications to entities as the state conservationist approves our selections for awards. And after that, I am gonna kick it over to Angie.
Morning, everyone. I believe I have worked with most of you since I have been helping Tim with RCPP and Brian with ACEP since December of 2023. But if not, my name is Angela Dietrich, and I am the easement program specialist here at the state office. And I'm going to go over a couple things to make sure that we have everything kind of like bases covered. And then I'm going to go through a couple things that we just want to remind you of, and a couple things that have changed with the coordinator departing as well. So one of the big things that we wanted to touch on was if you have a deferred application, one thing that may not have occurred in the past but is going to shortly in the next 1 to 2 weeks is a deferral letter will be going out to any entity that has an application that was not selected for funding in a previous year. If you want to move that application forward, you will have to respond to that letter. So please keep an eye out for those coming in the next couple weeks. If you do have an application that you would like to move forward as a deferred application into the next fiscal year, we will need updated documents. So any documents that were updated by either headquarters or us here at the state office will need to be completed and submitted. And any documents that expired, for example, a lot of entities put expiration dates on their purchase agreements. So you'll want to make sure that anything that expired is redone and submitted. And then our due diligence documents have timeframes that have to be updated. So any other document that has a time frame or update that would be needed would also have to be recompleted and submitted. So if you are going to do so, please submit all documents, updated or original, with the original application as a complete packet by the application deadline. If any changes in the proposed boundary have occurred since the application was originally submitted, or if the landowner has changed, that is no longer a deferred application and will need to be resubmitted as a new application. Just a heads up on some things to pay attention to this year when completing your application documents is we have revised 4 of them. 3 are published on our website where you can find them. 1, the ranking is still coming soon. We are working on that, but it is not approved yet. So 3 that we really want you to pay attention to when filling out this year is the pre-application eligibility tool, the application checklist, and the application data sheet. And then again, the ranking form will be being updated as well, but is not yet. Some things to make sure that you pay attention to when filling out the pre-application eligibility tool are questions 3, 6, and 7 have changed. So the question number 3 is, does the parcel have a certified wetland determination and a certified highly erodible land determination on file with FSA? If it does not, that is not an eligible application. And instead of letting us know that you have the prime unique soils present, we're asking you to choose which of the 4 criteria under question 6 you're applying for the application under. And then on question 7, the previous question has asked about eligible funds available, and we are requested to make sure that they are at the time of the application you have the funds available. So there's an update to that question as well. When it comes to the ALE application checklist, there's been a couple updates. Again, questions 1 and 2 are regarding the highly erodible lands determination and wetland determination, and then just letting you know that documents with FSA for landowner eligibility have to be on file as well. And it also takes you through the steps of what your landowner will need to work on if it's found that those do not have eligible documents on file. Number 7 is the aerial map. We wanted to make sure that it's understood that the location, section, township, range, roads, acreage, and ingress egress to the easement have to be present on the aerial maps when submitted. And then if you happen to have a copy of a land survey and a shapefile, please include that as well. And number 9, as Tim mentioned earlier, the entity will need to coordinate with the field office to get the due diligence site visit and forms completed this year. So if you do not know who to contact, you can reach out to me. My email is angela.dietrich@usda.gov, and I'm happy to help you with who to contact for your area. Just a really simple update to the application data sheet besides I edited some spacing and kind of sealed off different areas of the data sheet, but a lot of people were already giving us the UEI number instead of the DUNS number, but please note that on the application data sheet, we need the UEI number instead of the DUNS number this year. Now I'd like to go over some common application errors that we've seen in the past that we are trying to get ahead of. So wanted to touch bases so that everyone's aware and knows differences and what would be appreciated. So some things I'm going to touch on are incomplete and incorrect application documents, land and landowner eligibility, and a CPA 41 versus a CPA 41A. I don't have an additional slide for it, but we wanted to make sure everyone was aware that applications mailed on the deadline instead of received by the deadline are not considered an application that met the deadline. So we have to receive the application at the state office, whether it's emailed or mailed, by January 15th or whatever deadline is approved. If that is not I know it's just a tentative deadline at the moment. So when it comes to incomplete and inaccurate application documents, we need to ensure that all documents are filled out in the entirety. We also need to make sure that all acreage matches across. This is including the soils information, even on the web soil survey. So if that acreage does not match the rest of your documents, we are trying to get ahead of that because we have learned that down the road with our internal controls reviews, they will catch it and it is an issue. So please keep an eye on the acreage matching across all of the application documents. We also need to ensure that all applications have signatures that are valid. So a wet signature or a certified e-signature is the only document signatures that we can accept. Some common errors that we've noticed on the CPA 41A is that if you have multiple landowners on your deed, they all need to be listed in section B of the landowner information. So it does give you additional, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but it does give you additional below for landowners if they're a spouse, if they're a sibling, etc. It does not matter if they are on the deed, they have to be included on the application. Another issue that we've been noting is that section D is not filled out in entirety or correctly. So we need to make sure that all of these are filled out completely. We do understand that the form does not necessarily allow you to complete the form in the PDF. We apologize. I have tried to fix it and we cannot. It is locked, but we do need to focus on this section being completed in entirety. Last but not least, for the CPA 41A sections that need to be focused on, when it comes to section E under the roles, even if a third party or co-holder is not providing funding, we still need them included in section E under roles, contributions, and distributions. So the eligible entity that has funding that's coming forward needs to be included there, but then any co-holder, even if they do not have a contribution, needs to be included here as well. And then I know it might seem simple and maybe even somewhat silly, but if these check boxes are not completed, then we have to return the application. So please triple check that these small sections in the signature boxes are filled out accurately and completely. When it comes to the aerial maps, I kind of put together a quick little example. So we need to be able to see the easement boundary. And then we also need to be able to see the ingress egress. Even if it's just road frontage, we need to be able to see where that is noted on your map. We also need the map to include the section, township, and range, show roads with labels, and then have the complete acreage present on that map as well. When it comes to the application data sheet, again, we're trying to make sure that everything matches. So one of the issues that we've seen in the past is that the soil information on the data sheet does not match the web soil survey. So please keep an eye on that. And then the easement fair market value, ACEP, ALE dollars requested, entity contribution amount, and landowner contribution section needs to match sections D and E on the CPA 41A. When it comes to landowner eligibility, this is just emphasizing what that checklist is updated and letting you know. We need to ensure that everyone listed on the deed has an AGI certification form and an AD 1026 HEL and wetland certification document in with FSA, along with a CCC 902 business file for the current program year. If the landowner is an entity or trust, all members must meet FSA eligibility requirements. And if the landowner is an entity or trust, the signature authority documentation must be included in the application packet for us as well. When it comes to land eligibility, we need to ensure that all land within the proposed easement boundary is associated with a FSA track number, along with having a certified wetland determination and HEL determination on file with FSA. If it is found out that there is not a certified wetland determination on file, then the landowner will need to file an NRCS CPA 38 with their local NRCS field office. And if it's found out that there is not a highly erodible lands determination on file, the landowner will need to file an AD 1026 with FSA, which again, the AD 1026 should be part of the landowner eligibility as well, but we just wanted to make sure that we covered the bases. One thing that we've noticed is that a lot of you can you always seem to include a CPA 41 and a 41A. So we just wanted to make sure that you were aware that we only need a CP 41, which is the entity application for the program agreement with us, if you do not have one that is active. So every time you send us a parcel application, it is not necessary to send that entity application. It's only required if you do not have an active program agreement with NRCS. And if you're unsure, please feel free to reach out and we can look into that for you. Some final tips and takeaways to ensure a complete application is to utilize the required checklist while putting the application packet together for final submittal. Might be a good idea to have a colleague double check the application documents for completion and accuracy before you submit it to us. If you have the ability or have a GIS specialist at your county or entity, if they can create and utilize a shapefile to ensure consistent acreage across all documents, that would be a great idea. And just a little side note, if you're willing to send that to us with the application as well, that would be greatly appreciated to make sure that all of our planning meets your documentation. And then if you have your landowner work closely with their local NRCS service center and FSA service center to ensure eligibility for both the land and landowner, it may help the application run smoother. This does not have necessarily to do with the ALE application period, but we wanted to take the time to give a little reminder that for those that have closed easements with us, we do have to have the monitoring report submitted to us annually. You may use your own form, but we will need to ensure that they are completed and accurate before you send them our way. You are welcome to submit them via any form that you have already been doing so. I know a lot of entities have set up share sites that we have access to. If you don't, feel free to email them to me. And then just a reminder that NRCS monitoring is completed by fiscal year, not calendar year. So if you complete monitoring on October 1st of 2025, it is actually a 2026 monitoring report, just so that your records possibly match ours in the future. And I think this is where I hand it back to Tim.
All right. Well, thank you, Angie, for going through the application process and some of the things to keep track of and look at as we start working through applications and putting documents together and getting forms filled out. And yeah, the big thing too on the difference between the 41 and the 41A is requirement of ALE, of course, is in order to apply, right, to have a parcel contract, you need to have a program agreement. You can apply, but before we can get into a parcel contract, we need to have a program agreement in place. So if you don't have a program agreement currently, that's where you would provide that 41 document with your parcel application. But if you currently have a valid program agreement, no need to send that 41 document. That's just extra paper that will end up going in the recycle bin. So the distinction there, if you do or don't have the program agreement, that's when that 41 form is required. And the other thing too to mention, I think she touched on it, but to bring up is for those, if there's been some turnover at either your agency or the township or the entity that you're working with, whether you have a new supervisor due to election or somebody's retired and there's been a change in your leadership, and the previous person had authority to sign, make sure you're sending in updated documentation showing that whomever that new individual is in that management or leadership supervisory position now with the agency, you provide the documentation showing they have authority to sign on behalf for the entity that's applying for ALE as well. That's a big item that we've gotten thrown back several times during reviews with our internal controls is lack of authority to sign, missing authority, or change in staff that was never updated to show they currently are the new person that has the authority to sign. So a couple of miscellaneous things here to go over as well. please, when you're working on applications at the same time, be aware of preliminary clouds on title work that may cause some issues during ALE enrollment. Those being, outstanding mineral rights that need to be addressed on your title work, ensuring that you have dedicated ingress and egress access to the parcel, clearly, visibly denoted. One recently we've been running into some issues with ALE is mortgage subordinations. Please make sure you're having discussions with your landowners prior to submitting applications. Make them aware that if they have an outstanding mortgage on the title, that is going to have to be subordinated, and they've been having discussions with the lending institution about that and what steps they need to take to get those subordinated, especially if there is more than one mortgage or an open line of credit through a lending institution as well. Some of those become issues if they're not addressed and coordinated early on at the time you're applying, and the landowner and the lending institution are aware. Deeds, when you're sending deeds in to us after you have a parcel contract, of course, we have to have an NRCS deed review done at the national level. We ask, try to give us your as final version of the deed as possible. Make sure anybody who's needed to review it, whether it's a co-holder or another entity that's a participant with you, they've all been through the review of the deed and made their corrections, edits, modifications before you give it to us. Because what we have is, if we get a deed reviewed and it's approved and then we give it back, NRCS looks at that as a final deed, and it should not be altered or edited after that point. So if you're making edits or adjustments after that NRCS final review, we then have to go back and do a re-review, which can cause delays and other additional reviews to be reset and reoccur. So keep that in mind when you're sending in deeds for review for ALE. Internal controls, we still have to do internal controls review, especially before parcel applications are signed, or parcel contracts are signed. And also, again, before we get to closing on existing parcel contracts. And then one big thing we ask, especially with us here being reduced in staff and trying to team up on different projects and keep things moving, is regular communication with all of you out there on applications or existing parcel contracts is greatly appreciated. Even if you're just sending us a heads up every couple weeks saying, hey, yep, still working on this, but not making any traction yet. That regular communication is definitely helpful for us versus not hearing from you for about 2 or 3 months and then out of the blue wanting to close on a parcel in 30 days. It can be a little challenging for us to switch modes and jump on things at the last minute. So, yeah, we already talked about loss of staff. As of right now, MDART is still requiring any parcels with PA 116s to be listed as a co-holder. I know there is some legislation right now in the Michigan legislature that's pending that could impact that going forward, but at the moment, they're still requiring to be co-holders until there's a change or passing of legislation. And then, yeah, just a last item there, please be diligent in completing your annual required monitoring for existing FRPP and AL easements. That's something that's in the deed, and it's actually part of the ranking process, is ensuring that you're fulfilling your requirements on all existing NRCS entity held easements that you have with us. We want to make sure you're meeting those needs and requirements. So with that, I will let you all, if you have some questions, go ahead and raise hands if you want to talk verbally. Looks like the chat's been pretty quiet. I did include the link there that Angie referenced to where those documents are on our website. And like she mentioned, we will be updating. We're currently working on updating. There's been some changes to the ranking required. So we're working through those, and there's some review and approvals that have got to happen before we can post that updated FY26 ranking. But our goal is to hopefully have that ranking form out here within the next week or two at the latest. That's our goal. So hopefully that'll be posted there as soon as it's approved and ready. So any questions? Yes, looks like Matt Bertrand, you're the first up. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate all the information today, and thanks, Angie. I am curious if there are any known changes to the boilerplate for once grants are awarded. I've heard that other federal grants have had some significant changes. For example, disallowing organizations to engage in DEI activities, especially. But if you know of any changes to the boilerplate.
Yeah, so I'm guessing what you're getting at is the agreements, the parcel contracts themselves. Is that what you're wondering, if there's actually changes in that template?
Yeah, exactly, I think.
As of right now, we are not aware. I mean, we did have a meeting with our National Easement Division folks a couple of days ago, and there was no reference to any changes in the current ALE parcel contracts or agreements that we are aware of at this time. No.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Becky Huddinga, go ahead.
So authorized signer, our purchase agreement authorizes our county administrator to sign off on all documents going forward. So we can provide that. But as you know, we've hired many county administrators over the past couple of years. We do have our new one that should be here for the long haul. Do you need some sort of documentation of his name or hiring of some sort? Or is just the generic county administrator part enough for authorized signer documentation?
We do need documentation that shows who is in that seat at the time of each signing that occurs. So if you have the application signed and then somebody else is signing the parcel contract, if we have documentation that shows who is that county administrator at that point of time, that would be perfect.
What is easiest for you in that? Like, what's the simplest documentation that will prove that to you? I mean, I can take a snip off the website and send it to you.
I was going to say, I've done it myself in the past. So if you're willing to do that and send it with the application or the purchase agreement, that would be sincerely appreciated.
Okay, so it can be just that simple, that
Yep.
It's a snip off our website that says Patrick Waterman's the administrator. Okay,
yep.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I know it seems like we may be a little more, I guess, nitpicky or sticklers on applications and reviews, but in all honesty, we're just trying to keep these things moving as best we can with the limited support we have. And, the more complete these things are when we get them, the easier it is for us to keep them forward. So that's kind of the ultimate goal. And Caitlin, yes, we will be sending the recording. Actually, I think what we're going to do is we're going to post the recording of the meeting and the slides as well to that link on the website, NRCS website. So you all will be able to access this presentation and a copy of the slides as well. Good question, Becky. Will we be giving out an award for the most complete application that we receive? We do have some gold stars. We might be sending out some gold stars on applications that come in and don't need any fixes and are perfect and spot on. So if you need a goal or want a gold star, that should be the goal. I was expecting more questions, folks. Man, you guys are a quiet group. So any other questions? If not, we'll let you guys have some of your morning back here. All right, well, like I said, as of right now, we're tentatively looking at January 15th, so keep that on your radar. If it changes or moves differently, we will definitely reach right out and let you know. And once it is official, we'll let you know as well. So we're hoping that we get the word on the official date here real soon. So with that, thanks for joining us. And we look forward to getting all your applications in and getting this 4 million back out so you guys can do good things in land preservation in Michigan. Thank you all and have a good day.
Thanks, guys.